speaker, but I actually would like her to introduce herself. She has an incredible story. And so, Kriss, if you'll come up, please. This is Kriss Blevens.
Thank you, Joyce. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad I dressed casual. I kind of felt like I was just going to come into a living room with friends, neighbors, and that's exactly what we are here in New Hampshire. And it's just such a pleasure to be here. I'm here because of Congresswoman Ann Custer, who's a good friend of mine. And, oh yes, I agree. She's wonderful, and she connected me with you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, and then I've got a lot of stories to tell, but I'm going to kind of try and put them in a little concise method so that I can also touch upon one of the greatest problems we've ever faced in this state, which is the current opiate crisis. So my name is Kriss Blevens. I've been an ambassador to the state of New Hampshire before. 30 years ago, I traveled all over the state with a crown on my head as your reigning Miss New Hampshire, and competed in the Miss America pageant that year, and really got to know this state and the people in it. And you know, I've drawn a lot on that experience of having the courage to come up and speak, you know, and I'm really glad I had that experience because my current situation, what I've been through and where my life has brought me, has got me spending a lot more time at podiums educating people through my stepdaughter Amber's story. So I am a New Hampshire entrepreneur. I say that I did go to college, got a degree in international marketing, studied international business in London, England. I was over there for 3.5 years. I like to say I was born and raised in New Hampshire. I went overseas, I got big mind, and I came back here to New Hampshire with big ideas of starting my own cosmetic company. And that's what I did. So I spell my name kind of unique. It's Kriss with a K and 2 S's, as my husband Mark, who's sitting back here, says. It's Kiss with an R. And Kriss Cosmetics, I started 30 years ago, actually, in my years in Miss New Hampshire. And 30 years doing the same thing. You better get pretty good at it, right? So I started my own makeup line and, you know, chose what I wanted for people. And it started with working on women and then educating women. And, you know, 30 years ago, I had a young clientele. And I used to always worry about, like, geez, when I get older, no one's going to want to come to me because I'm going to be an old makeup artist. And now I have quite an audience of people that are, you know, age 40, I'm actually over 50, so 50 and up that want to learn all my tricks because, well, I'll tell you, I'm a political and media makeup artist. I'm a TV makeup artist, okay? My career, okay, just took off in the 1991 election. I'd like to stand here before you and tell you that I have made up every presidential candidate in the last 6 elections, all parties. Yes, I'm a bipartisan makeup artist. People always say, so what party are you from? I'm like, oh, I love everybody. I'm here to make everybody look beautiful. And that whole philosophy, since the 1990, going back that far, has really come in handy during an opiate crisis where we have a very bipartisan issue where we all need to unite. And I think I just love everybody so much that I can just get along with everybody, and it's wonderful. But yes, I was the makeup artist in 2007 to have the incredible honor of doing the makeup for Senator Hillary Clinton at that very first debate. Well, I pulled out some tricks. I had some new light reflective powder, I had a lot of tricks up my sleeve. She gave me her face, and well, her assistant held up this red lipstick, and I said, ooh, I'm not feeling it. And so Senator Clinton looked at me and said, then do what you feel. And so she just gave me her face, and I just had a blast. I mixed all of these colors and everything, and then she went out and had quite the debate. In fact, the next morning everybody was making rumors that maybe she had quite possibly had a facelift because she looked so good. And then word got out that it was her makeup artist and the makeup. So that really put me on the map, and it got me the job traveling as the head makeup artist on the special events unit for CNN. I had the distinct pleasure of being the top makeup artist in the country, 18 months of traveling, doing all the makeup for all the debates, platform artist for the conventions, and my career has just taken off from there. It has just been extraordinary. So to date, just finished this last election, and had some very special conversation with Senator Clinton, which I'll share with you in a minute. But my company handled 5 networks with 10 makeup artists, and I think it's not bad for a 51-year-old, but I did work 170 hours in 12 days, and I stood at the end of it to be able to, you know, say, wow, I just did that. Amazing. So, the love of my life I met 6 years ago in August. And we met at a gas station in Candia. Amazing things happen in small towns in New Hampshire. But when we met, of course, you know, in our first date, it was talking about our children. And I have 3 amazing sons. One that graduated from Plymouth State University, so I love this town. And so I have 3 boys, and Mark said to me, I have 1 daughter, and I just lit up. A girl! You know, and you know, I couldn't wait to meet her, and he said, Kriss, you know, I gotta warn you, you know, she's just not okay. And I was really, like, moved to meet her and find out what was going on. But you see, when I met her, you know, it didn't take much to figure out that there was just something not right with her, you know. She suffered from bipolar disorder, and it was untreated, and she was unmedicated, so she was self-medicating. At age 15, unbeknownst to her parents, she was treating herself with over-the-counter Benadryl. We talk a lot about gateway drugs, and for her, it was over-the-counter Benadryl. It just gave her a little bit of calmness, you know, made her feel a little bit more comfortable in her skin. And that slowly turned into marijuana use. And then that turned into alcohol use. And then by the time I met her, we didn't realize it. A lot of her story unfolded later for us, but she was purchasing opiate pills, prescriptions on the street. So opiates, Percocets, and Vicodin, and anything she could get her hands on that made her feel comfortable in her skin. The last 2 years of Amber's life, I'm going to just hold up a picture so you can really connect with Amber. She had a lot of different hair colors. Red was probably the best with those crystal blue eyes. She ran dog rescue missions. Wasn't it odd to have her call down from Louisiana with a load of dogs, but her car broke down. She wanted to be an EMT. She had it in her to help the sick and suffering. The last 2 years of Amber's life were a little puzzling for Mark and I because we got a call one night from Valley Street Jail in Manchester. And she was there. She'd been arrested for possession of heroin. And that's when we realized that she was slipping away. She was always a runner, always running. There'd be times, 3 months at a time, that we wouldn't see her, and we'd wonder, where's Amber? You know, and then all of a sudden she'd appear, try to hold it together, but never stayed for long. So this began a series of 4 incarcerations in the last 2 years of her life. So there were 2 counts of heroin possession, and then, you know, to our devastation, the last 2 incarcerations were prostitution. We would later find out that she was a victim of human trafficking. This is a very common thing right now in Manchester. Women are being sold, and they're being paid for their work in heroin, and they need to use, so they have to do the work to get the drug that keeps them feeling normal. Because in the end, the only time they feel normal is when they're using. And when they're coming off that drug, they feel very, very, very sick. So,
What happened? Well, one time, the last time she was in Valley Street Dale, Mark and I went in to visit her, and it's funny, it's in hindsight that you remember one-liners that you didn't realize at the time penetrated your soul so deeply, but they would rise up at a time of need and maybe motivate you. And I'll never forget this conversation I had with Amber. Through the glass, she's in an orange jumpsuit. Amber, are you taking advantage of any recovery meetings in here, any treatment they're offering you, counseling, spiritual counseling, anything in here? She looked at me through the glass and she said, Kriss, there's no recovery in here. And what I saw was a girl that was fully detoxed. She'd been there for a couple months, but I could see the dim spirit and the just sort of the disease behind the not using. And I fought hard to get her into Farnham Center, and a bed became available, but the jail would not let her out to go to treatment. When she got out of treatment, the bed was not available. 3 days after she got out of jail, she disappeared and started using again. We found her in a park. At this point, she was living homeless on the streets of Manchester. Mark and I have a beautiful home, a room for her, an education waiting for her, every opportunity that you would offer your child. She chose life on the street. We did not realize that she was the girl that was trying to help everyone else. She was under bridges helping people detox from heroin. We knew that she considered these people her friends because she'd stay overnight for a couple of nights, but in the morning she wouldn't be around. And we'd go into the bedroom and find a note on the door that said, I love you both so much. Thank you for everything you're doing to help me, but I need to go back to my people. Her people were the people in the streets of Manchester addicted to heroin just like her, that she felt she could help. But unfortunately, Amber was the girl that helped everybody else, but that could not help herself. This is why outside help is so important. Let me fast forward to Easter Sunday 2 years ago. We asked her to call us in the morning so we could pick her up wherever she was and bring her to one of 2 Easter celebrations with family. She never called. We went to the first Easter dinner, and at the end of the dinner, she called. And she gave us a random alley address in Manchester to pick her up at. And we went and picked her up, and my sister-in-law had made a beautiful plate of food and a little candy basket, an Easter basket for her. We picked her up, and it was the first time I'd seen her wearing makeup. I always wanted to do her makeup, but she kind of was like, oh, you're not doing my makeup. But she did this beautiful job in her makeup, and I was really attracted to her in that she appeared to look beautiful. But she got in the back seat of the car, and I took one look in her eyes, and her pupils were the size of a little pinprick, and I looked in there. You guys, when I say that there was nobody home, her soul was vacant. She groveled through the plate of food in the Easter basket like she hadn't eaten in a week, kind of barbaric style. And Mark and I were in the front seat listening to her babble about things that did not make sense, and we were heartbroken. We had everything we could do to hold back our tears. We went to the next dinner, and it was terribly embarrassing before intimate family to see her behavior. So we decided to just leave, put her in the car, and we said, Amber, please come home. Now, when I say we had tried everything as parents we even had heard that if you lie and you go to Portsmouth Pavilion emergency room and you say you're going to kill yourself, that you can get admitted and get detoxed. We had already done that. It worked. 3 days after she got out, she was using again. You see? All these gaping holes in the system. Continuum of care, none. So she said, no, I don't want to go home with you. Could you please just bring me back where you dropped me off? So in an alley parallel to Elm Street in downtown Manchester called New Hampshire Lane, we dropped her off in a parking lot behind this old apartment building. And 3 days later, her body was found in that exact same alley, face down, dead from a heroin overdose. That was April 23rd in 2014. Only by the grace of God can I stand here and tell this story with a straight face, because of what Amber's life stood for, but more importantly, in death, she has become an incredibly powerful spirit and force for change in the state through me, and I am blessed to tell you what has happened since her death. I will tell you that for 2 weeks after her death, we were emotionally immobilized. How do I go back to my busy makeup studio, where sometimes I see up to 20, 30 people a day, and knowing that everyone knew that I had lost her from an overdose, there's stigma and shame in this. How can I, knowing that as parents we had done everything we could, but we couldn't stop it, how do I go back to work? And I had a dream in the middle of the night. An angel came to me and said, stay in the stream of life. And for me, what that meant is what we've all had to do at times in our life when we're going through difficult times, but we have to show up. You suit up, you show up, you go, you do the best you can. And I weeped through appointments often. I cried when I needed to cry. I let myself be free. And then my friends from NH1 said, would you mind telling her story on TV? And Mark and I did. I had no idea that this sharing of her story would become part of both of our healing journey, and it has. I ended up, we're in a state election at the time, and I worked for Governor Hassan and Senator Shaheen and Senator Ayal, all of them. And slowly behind the scenes, I'm starting to tell Amber's story to our state leaders. And they're opening their hearts of compassion, and they're hearing. But then they're hearing the story from more people in New Hampshire, and then they're coming back to me and they're starting to ask me questions. And at this point, I am serving on the board of directors for Families in Transition, who has an intensive outpatient program. And I'm asked to join the board of directors for Farnham Center. So I'm serving, which is our, at the time, our only medical detox facility in the state of New Hampshire. And I'm feeling moved in my spirit. I went through New Futures, which is a nonprofit in Concord that really gets in and is all about changing policy and creating advocates like myself. And I went through their training workshop, and within a week I was presenting before the House of Representatives and various committees at the State House, sharing Amber's story. It was through the bipartisan efforts of Congresswoman Custer and Congressman Ginta that Mark and I were invited to go to Washington, D.C. and share Amber's story before Congress. When I say this has been a phenomenal ride, it has. So advocacy and speaking is where it started. But then what happened was that one day I looked in the mirror and I realized that everybody was talking about the problem and no one was doing anything about it. And I felt unsettled. And as an entrepreneur, I realized that, very much so, people often need to see things happen before they believe in them. I'm not that kind of person. I'm a person that gets a vision, believes it, and then isn't afraid to take a risk and give it a try, not afraid of failure. When you've lost a child, you've pretty much lost something so deep that anything that you try to accomplish in this world, I think Amber's death gave me courage. And so I kind of sat and prayed, and I was talking to so many people at this point and hearing so much about these gaping holes in the continuum of care and why are all these overdose totals going up and up. Amber's year was 328. Then we get to last year, 430, and I got angry. My grief, my anger, and I said, I gotta pour this into something. And again, one night I went to sleep and I had a dream. And in the middle of the night, this dream was so spectacular. It was as if there was a state of emergency. And I went into a building that was probably 4 times the size of this. And there were cots lined up everywhere with very sick people suffering on the cots and illuminated sort of people next to them, helping them through what looked to be a devastating illness or natural disaster. And in my dream, the guy took me out the door, and I turned around, and on the outside of the building was this huge sign that said Amber's Place. I woke up that next morning, and I kid you not, 5 hours later, was booked with CNN to do Hillary Clinton's makeup in Keene. And you know when you wake up from a nightmare, you're kind of like walking around like you feel like you're still in it? I was just possessed by this dream, and when I saw her, you know, we embraced each other, and I told her about my dream, and she looked at me, and she touched my arm, and she said, Kriss, chase your dream. Now, when I say that this woman has been a magical, powerful figure in my life, I mean, when I did the makeover on her, the best makeover she's ever had, that changed my life. I mean, I'm grateful I've had an opportunity to say, you have no idea, but you gave me the boost that it's allowing me, a single financial parent, to put my kids through college. Like, thank you. But now, she imparted in me these words, Kriss, chase your dream. And I walked into, I talked to my friends at Farnham Center, and everybody was just kind of like, wow. And what I saw was like, if only we could initiate recovery in these people that are sick and suffering, catch them in their moment, their darkest moment, maybe they just overdosed, they're brought back by Narcan, then all of a sudden, like, somebody can intercept and say, do you want your life? Because my work with people that are addicted will tell me that it's like, if you could picture 98% of who they are clouded over by some kind of block, if you really look them in the eye, you will see that if they have breath, they still have life. There is a vibrant, beautiful spirit in these people. If you ask them, why the heck did you pick up? They'll say, I don't know, I was curious. I got hooked on opiates because I had an injury. There's so many reasons why, and what I realized, people were asking why would anyone take heroin? I said, can we just stop asking why and realize that they already are addicted? We need to help them now. So 6 months ago, I walked into Hope for New Hampshire Recovery. I sit on the board of directors for them too. They are New Hampshire's community recovery center. We're popping up community centers all over. We have Manchester, which is our hub, Concord, Berlin, and others opening, and there's so much being done in community recovery. When you think of what is community recovery, it's peer recovery coaches, people with lived experience that believe in recovery, that know you don't have to suffer. You can walk in the door, sit down, and get some hope. And recovery coaches are loaded with the resources that can say what is right for that particular person to evolve through. Not everybody needs to go to a medical detox. Some people you need to integrate their recovery into their life. There's many ways that people can enter a path of recovery. So I walked into Hope for New Hampshire Recovery and told to the director and one of the board members about my idea. I said, Amber's Place, I want to open an emergency crisis shelter. I want a place where people can come, where it doesn't cost any money, a safe place where they can be in a sober environment until their recovery path is worked out so they don't fall through the cracks. It'll save money for our hospitals. It'll save money for law enforcement. It'll save money for hospitals because many people who overdose are in again and again and again and again, and they don't have insurance. It's costing us a lot of money. It's putting a lot of stress on our first responders. Law enforcement are arresting the same people over and over and over. And if you go into our jails, they're filled with people with substance use disorder. They're not necessarily bad people, but they had to do bad things in order to support their habit because they can't stop. Because if they stop, they get sick. They don't want to get sick. They're afraid to withdraw, so they have to use. And when you've lost everything, you do just about anything to get what you need. This is the truth. So 6 months ago, I approached them with this. 15 months ago, we opened our doors. We're located at 140 Central Street in Manchester. Everything in Amber's Place has been donated, from the beds to the food to the clothes to the everything. I personally set out and raised $80,000 to date to open the doors so that I could create some statistics that the powers that be would say, your idea is working. And we are now at that place. We've united with the Manchester Fire Department, surrounding police departments. We've created Safe Station. Anyone sick and suffering can walk into, from all over the state, can walk into any fire department in Manchester, New Hampshire, get medically cleared, a coach comes, brings them to Hope for New Hampshire Recovery, they get admitted to Amber's Place, we keep them safe, we love them until we can get them into treatment. What has happened in the last 15 weeks? We have seen over 180 guests at Amber's Place. I'd like to report that approximately 90% of them are still engaged in recovery and are now embracing their gift of life. The overdoses in the city of Manchester have dropped dramatically since Amber's Place opened, and the city of Manchester has just granted my project $100,000 for sustainability. The city government has been amazing. They finally see. You see? They need to see to believe, and now they believe. They see and they believe. And so do our state leaders. Very recently, the Department of Health and Human Services has also awarded Amber's Place $100,000 in sustainability funds to continue the mission. And what is our plan for Amber's Place? Is to open out more Amber's Places all over the state, clean it up. This is a safe place, not just for people who are willing to admit that they need help to go, but for those family members. Do you know what it's like to have a child that's addicted? It is terrorizing. This is not just about the person that is sick and suffering. This is about the family, the mother, the father, the sister, the brother, the aunt, the uncle, that knows that that beautiful person in their life that they love so much is being taken over by something, and there's nothing they can do. And every day you wake up afraid that that's the day that your loved one's going to die. It's a horrific way to live. And if you have no one in your life that's been affected by this, bless you. I'm so happy for you that you never, but trust me when I say the families that have come out of the woodwork to me in the past 2 years is devastating to hear the stories. It is devastating and rewarding to be in Amber's Place. Mark and I go there, a few times a week. We like to meet all the guests. Our favorite thing to do is to go in and say, hey, how's it going? Kriss, Mark, And they look at us like, who are you, And so this is my favorite line. I go, I'm Amber's mother. And there's a big sign on the wall, Amber's Place, like, guess where you are. We had to lose so that other people could have life and opportunity. And I've come to really believe that recovery is possible. And this crisis, which has got us all so fearful, we don't need to be so afraid. We can start to really have hope because there's a solution. And that cavernous hole at the continuum of care, initiating recovery when they're the sickest of the sick on the verge of death, is what Amber's Place is filling. And I'm just so blessed that Governor Hassan and our new wonderful Director of Substance Misuse, he doesn't like being called the drug czar, but James Farah has been working side by side with me. And, everyone involved has been. And I have a lot of hope. And I'd like to just put it out there, if we could all unify on this, if there's anything I can do in your communities, I will come speak anytime you want. Educate, answer questions. What I'd like to see, we are the first in the nation for the primary. They said we're the worst in the nation for the problem with the opiate crisis. I say we be the first in the nation to turn it around and show the rest of the country how it's done.
Yes.
And how you can help is to be aware and hold close to your heart everything I've shared with you tonight. Know that it's real. Know that our New Hampshire families are being deeply affected. And know that compassion, compassion is really where it's at. And if you can open your hearts and just keep an ear out and think about the people that lose family members and loved ones to addiction, it's devastating. It's one thing, Mark and I, we just lost my mother-in-law a couple weeks ago. She lived a full life. She was a beautiful woman, and it's heartbreaking to go through grief and lose somebody that you love. But it is devastating to lose a 22-year-old that had dreams for an incredible future. We don't want to lose a whole generation. We need them. and inside of every single person suffering is a dream and a life that is worth fighting for. And I have definitely, I call it makeup on a mission. I have really put the two together. I'm grateful that I was the top makeup artist with all the candidates, was able to be painting their face saying, you will hear Amber's story, or you're not going to feel good. I had like captive audience with all the candidates. I kind of held them hostage in the name of beauty. But I'm really glad I did, because it put New Hampshire on the map, all eyes on us. So let's make a difference. Let's keep fighting hard and together. Thank you so much.
It's great to have this down in Manchester, but we've got it happening here and up in the North Country. It takes money. And even Custer said the other day at one of our events, New Hampshire is cheap. How are we going to make these people come across with money for this disease, which still holds a stigma? You wouldn't put a cardiac patient or a diabetic in 2 weeks with no care. This is what we're seeing happening. And yes, they want to get rid of the sources of drugs, but to me, it's prevention, but it's treatment. It is such an addictive, terrible thing, as you say. They need the treatment, but it takes money and it takes personnel. And we've got this outflight of young people who might be trained as clinicians and whatnot. So what is your answer for, yes, you say you want it coming on. We need it all over the state. We need these clinics well-staffed by professional people, earning well for these jobs, blah, blah, blah. How are you going to get this?
That's great. I think I'm already doing it. Let me share with you. Let me share with you what's happening with Amber's Place. Many of the people that come in end up staying with us for about a week, and we care for them. We would have no problem calling 911 if we needed it. With opiate withdrawal, you don't die from opiate withdrawal, you just feel like you want to. So many of them are withdrawing. With us, Amber's Place costs nothing to the person that is there for the 1 to 14 day stay. We are operated solely on community donations. And, for what I would say the little bit of effort that I put in, I just had one person that was able to raise $80,000, which has sustained us for 15 weeks for full staffing. That's 3 coaches on 24/7 with a 16-bed capacity. So the Amber's Place model, actually, the operating budget for an entire year is only $300,000, which is nothing when you think about how much it's saving. So I think it's about looking at the savings, and what it does is it helps us kind of have some time. Everybody presents the disorder in a different way and needs a different path of treatment. Now with Medicaid, there's going to be expanded coverage for substance use treatment, which is going to allow the treatment centers that are not taking Medicaid. Amber's Place is dealing mostly with the uninsured and Medicaid. We get them on Medicaid, but then there's very few treatment beds that have Medicaid, right? So I think it's expanding the Medicaid beds in New Hampshire will make a really big difference, and will deal with that population. Because those that are insured have sort of a smorgasbord to be able to go anywhere in the country. They fly out to Arizona, Florida, California. They can go to a 30-day program, and no one even knows they're gone. They're on vacation. Then they come back. You see, there's different levels of this, but it's really our folks that don't have insurance or that are on Medicaid that are having a hard time getting into treatment. So a lot of them then are with us, withdraw. We're trying to get them maybe some comfort med support for that process, and then they're able to go to an intensive outpatient program, or they're able to just go into treatment or entertain 12-step recovery programs and actually find their recovery in a way that really is incredibly cost-effective and at the same time miraculous. So I don't think that money's so much the issue. I'm very cheap, and I would have never started something like this if I didn't think I could sustain it. But through fundraising events, I had one family that raised $8,000 that did a fundraiser at an alpine club and came in, and that paid our staff for 3 weeks. Peer recovery coaches have lived experience, and there's a lot to say with lived experience. Many of them have been in recovery for a very long time, and have incredible lives, and they want to give back, because they're so grateful that they survived. And, they work for an hourly wage, they keep their life simple, but their life is of service, and to them, that is great value. So I think understanding it on that level, hopefully that helps to answer the question that this isn't necessarily an expensive fix. It's a compassionate fix.
Kriss, at this point, I would also encourage, since this is a political meeting, that every time you talk to a candidate, ask them whether they are in favor of expanded Medicaid. One of the difficulties in New Hampshire is that we have this 2-year program. We have now expanded for another 2 years. It needs to be expanded. It needs to be for everyone, because one of the reasons that New Hampshire is so low on treatment centers and Medicaid opportunities is we've never had that before. And so why would I, as a organization, move into New Hampshire when I don't know whether I'm going to get any money or not? Unfortunately, they do need to make money. You need to make money to maintain it, and we need Medicaid expansion, and we need it permanently in this state. And ask every single candidate, I don't care whether it's a House candidate, Charlie Chandler, or Martha Hennessy in District 5, or Jeff Woodburn in District 1, what are you going to do about Medicaid expansion? Because that can change the culture of New Hampshire, and we need to make it stable.
Absolutely. And that is so important. And the other thing too is that going hand in hand with substance use disorder or behavioral health issues, mental health issues. I've seen it a lot of times. The withdrawal process happens, and some people are just illuminated. They're feeling great. Wow, I've never felt this good in my life. But for a good majority, you get that drug out of there, and underneath is that mental health issue that they've been self-medicating. So I think, also in this conversation needs to be that it is very often that these two things are co-occurring. And you're absolutely right. I'm appalled really at how many people have no insurance, coming into our facility. But the process of getting them insured and getting them on Medicaid has been really smooth and easy too, and I'm really glad to report that, So thank you so much for your input and your passion. Anybody else? Anyone want to know what my opinion is on Narcan?
Yeah.
Everybody know? Does anyone not know what Narcan is? So Narcan is used to reverse an overdose. And to me, it is just something helping us out, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't do anything to cure the disease at all. But I can tell you from parents whose children are now in recovery, and Narcan was the deciding factor that saved their life in an overdose. They're so incredibly grateful for it. So at first I was really anti-Narcan, and then now that I've really talked to a lot of families who are just grateful for it, I see it as a wonderful tool to buy some time, keeping people alive so that we can initiate recovery for them. Yeah.
Wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much. In some cities, I think in Buffalo, and even to some extent in some of the Scandinavian countries, there are the needle exchange programs. And that seems to me to be a realistic approach. What is your opinion of that?
As far as needle exchange goes, I look at the most positive part of that is that it cuts down on the public health issues of spreading HIV and Hep C. And, it stops other diseases from happening as a result of IV drug use. So in that sense, it's good. It also draws the user to a specific place where coaches and people in recovery can actually try to do that, what we call initiating recovery. It's when you invite somebody to a different way of life than the one they're living and give them that hope. So I think if it's used in sort of a counseling way too, it can be a way to draw the sick and suffering to a place where they can be impacted by other people.
Do you feel a change in the culture around this across parties? In other words, I've been aware that there's been a kind of punishment conversation, with needles, we can't make it easy for people to use, or we shouldn't make it easy for them to get over an overdose, by using Narcan. But it sounds to me as though across the aisle, people are really responding more often with compassion and with an intent to rescue the people from our community who have this problem. But I wonder if that's your observation as well.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. But what I say, you can fight over not having Narcan available and the needle exchange, but really what you're saying is, do you think that's going to stop this freight train? I don't think so. They're going to find a way to use. They don't care if they're using dirty needles, that's the thing. And then they become, such a public health risk to so many other people. So, those conversations are petty in light of human life. And that's really, how I see it, is that anybody that still has a breath in them has an opportunity for life. They're a valuable person on the inside. And we try not to judge the symptoms of the disease, which, I love this one-liner. They break out in handcuffs. It's one of the symptoms of addiction, But at the same time is understanding the value of human life. And I think this is good conversation for getting back to the bottom line, is that we're talking about human life here. I look at this, I'm treating this as my own state of emergency, even if one hasn't been declared, because every time somebody dies, my heart hurts, because I know how that feels to lose a child. No matter how out of control they were, what they were doing, how many times they went to jail. Amber had 500 people come to her wake. We had it in the inner city. We invited the homeless population. Mark and I sat there and were hugged by people that hadn't showered in a month, saying she was the only person that ever showed me love. And Amber's place is Amber's legacy. To love the people that normally we would turn our backs to. And that's what compassion is. Compassion isn't just for somebody that's, in a little bit of pain. It's like, I dare you to go and love the sickest of the sick. I love you. I would love to see everybody put themselves in a place where they can find compassion for somebody who is right on the verge of death by their own choice to pick up that drug, but just the same on the verge of death, and not have compassion rise up inside of you. It's a really easy disorder to judge, and it's hard to find compassion, but I think stories such as mine, begin to take you from how you think about it to how you feel about it, and that's where that change happens in all of us, that we can open our hearts, to the people that are really hurting.
I know it's been a long evening. I just have a few announcements to make before you go. One is that we're going to be part of the Ashland 4th of July parade, and we're looking for lots of people to follow behind Val's truck. So we hope you'll all come out and march with us in the parade. We'll have a presence at the Haverhill Fair, July 27th through the 31st, and Sue Ford is going to be looking for volunteers there. We are just about ready to have the headquarters in the bookstore that Bernie had before. The lease is not signed yet, but we're very hopeful that that's going to come through. So we'll need lots of help at the headquarters. We probably won't get it really up and running until August, but we're going to be looking for furniture and all sorts of things there. And definitely save the date for the garden tour on July 9th. This is a fundraiser for our headquarters. There are a few flyers out, and we're also looking for volunteers to help out sitting in for 2 hours in the gardens. That's coming along really well. Finally, there's a fundraiser for Andy Custer on June 28th at the Swan River Landing in Ashland. And if you're interested in going, you can access the invitation on her website. And Barb, do you want to mention?
No, this is the garden tour, so.
Just the garden tour, okay. But we'll be having a lot of other house parties for our candidates, so we'll keep you posted on all of that through our upcoming events. And we don't have another meeting now until September. Our next meeting is going to be on September 28th, which is the fourth Wednesday of the month. It's just delayed 1 week. And at that point in the fall, we'll be hearing from all the local candidates. So,
Joyce, quick announcement. I think the Grafton County Democrats are going to have a picnic on August 28th, which is a Sunday, in Orford, and we'll get you more information. That just got set up today.
okay.
So, and that's come and meet the candidates. It's right before the primary.
So thank you, everybody. It was wonderful, Kriss. Thank you for coming. And we hope to see you this summer.
So would you please tell me why you're here at the Democratic meeting today, and what are you desiring to share with the Democratic Party today?
I'm so grateful to be here with the Democratic Party to share hope, really, in the face of our state's greatest crisis I think we've ever had in terms of a health crisis. That being the opioid crisis. And I'm here to share hope. I did lose my stepdaughter, Amber, 2 years ago to a heroin overdose. And her story really highlights a lot of the gaping holes in the continuum of care. And as founder of Amber's Place, an emergency recovery shelter in Manchester, I'm here to talk about all the great success that we're having here in the state of New Hampshire as we all band together and unify for a solution for the crisis.
I was here listening to your presentation. You've had an amazing journey from being Miss New Hampshire over 30 years ago to starting your own business, makeup foundation business, and using it as a tool for Amber's Place through politicians and nationwide as well as locally. How has that journey been, and do you think you'll impact people like you want to?
I think I've already been able to impact people with this issue, being one of the country's top political and media makeup artists. I really utilized the New Hampshire primary as I was painting the faces of all the candidates to share Amber's story and to talk about the heroin crisis here in New Hampshire and get them talking about it. And I feel as though it's made a huge difference in terms of making us all aware of what the problem is. And now in terms of solution, I think opening Amber's Place and seeing the incredible results of having over 180 guests in the first 15 weeks that we've been open has just really brought attention to the fact that we've tapped into a solution through Amber's Place.
What do you foresee in the future, legislative-wise, for the state, and even forecasting future opiate advocacy? What do you envision?
What I see is, overdose totals going down and unification and communities coming together to uplift, whether it's community recovery or places like Amber's Place and all the communities, to really create an open door for those that are sick and suffering. And, that opens that door to various forms of treatment through peer recovery coaching. And this seems to be really where it's at. There's the grassroots mission of this whole crisis is really where we're seeing the greatest effects.
My last question, if someone wanted to participate in fundraising to having their family members participate in Amber's Place, either as a recovering addict or assisting in a volunteering capacity, what's the best way to contact you?
Our volunteers really are all about getting out into the community and drawing awareness and doing fundraising efforts to support Amber's Place, because it is a free service to our guests that come. That is really the best way to volunteer, and people can find us on Facebook. Amber's Place Emergency Recovery Respite is on Facebook. All of our contact information is there. Or ambersplacenh.org is our website, and that will navigate different opportunities for volunteering or getting in touch with us just to get more information on how we can help you or a loved one that's suffering from substance use disorder.